Welcome and hello, everyone. We're like to call this meeting to order. There's a meeting going on over there. That's okay, but my mic's not on over there, is it? Yeah, thank you. That was all I wanted to check. So we acknowledge with respect that we're meeting on the traditional territory of the Lungan speaking people, and we are honored to have the opportunity to build strong working relationships with the people of the Songhees and Cousepsum nations. The approval of the agenda is up next here. I guess I get a motion, right, for that? So get a motion to accept it. Karen Woodland. Okay, yeah, the name takes a bit mixed up. So all those in favor? Okay. I will mention, sorry, I should have done that first, that absent today is Charlotte Corley and Pamela Nicholson is online. And Devon is online. Devon, I can't remember your last name. Barnes, thank you.
Barnes, yeah.
Yves. And they're online, and thank you for joining us despite the job it took to get here. So the item number 3, I'd like to have a motion to accept the minutes of the Special Environment Committee meeting held November 2023. We have a motion to accept minutes. Karen Woodland. Anyone opposed? None opposed. Public participation. I don't see anyone online. Do we have someone online, Amanda? No one online? Anyone present? No. I see familiar faces in the crowd. Then welcome to the staff that are here for support during this meeting. New business. The main item here we have on the agenda is a report. Carolyn Richman will present the draft Climate Action Plan Phase 1 implementation planning. And I guess, Carolyn, you should take it away at this point. Please.
Thank you. Thank you for your time today on this. So you have before you a recommendation looking to move forward to council with a phase 1 implementation of the Climate Action Plan. As you know, in August 2023, council adopted the Climate Action Plan, which is now a guiding document for the city. And at the time that it was adopted, a process was identified to bring forward phases of more of a detailed plan of how staff will implement and budget implications and whatnot. So that's what we're bringing here forward, looking to advance quickly so we can continue to scale up climate action in Colwood. All right, so today I am just going to really briefly go over what is in the package before you. There's some housekeeping on the council's climate action plan. There's a document just outlining the phase 1 implementation that really started this fall, but with some of the priorities I already identified, but will continue through this next year. Strategic communication and engagement for 2024, and the recommendation that you have before you in the report. Whoops, what have we got here? Okay, there we go. Jumped ahead. So the first thing I wanted to touch on briefly is that in August, when council adopted the Climate Action Plan, they asked for some edits to the plan. And so you'll see a list of edits and a updated plan in your package that identifies just that addition of the communications and engagement element as an overarching pathway, and a few errors that were missed in the plan from the desktoping and whatnot that was done. So that is just to be really clear on some small changes that council had asked for primarily. All right, and so as you might be aware, some climate action initiatives have already been ongoing and increasing in Colwood. The staff report includes a list of some of the things we've been working on through the fall across different departments. And in the photo, you can see Colwood having been able to purchase the first electric dump truck in Canada for municipalities. So that was exciting moves like that. Hopefully we can continue to really jump on these great opportunities. So the phase 1 implementation package that you have is identifies priority actions that were part of the plan that council adopted. So they're the basis of the implementation for phase 1. Those key actions, some of those identified up there, like the building retrofit strategy and the state of biodiversity report. Those initiatives are still pending the budget process and whatnot, but this is the proposal of what we're staff are proposing to accomplish first in this phase 1. But some of those priorities were already identified. Well, most of those priorities were already identified through the plan itself. And they include things like the development of policies and practices, working on public engagement and tools for the public to support the public in this work. And overall, the city really needs to work on some capacity building and resources and partnerships that we need to do to really scale up what we're doing. And then one of the key parts of what we need to do in this first year is really start a process for monitoring our climate action so that we can have really engaging annual reporting on how this is unfolding. And it will also enable us to do adaptive management, to learn as we go, what is working, what's not working, what do we need to do differently, where are we hitting our targets, and where do we need to adjust. So I think that's a really important element of what we need to do in this next year. And so I just wanted to highlight that some of the priority setting that was done in the climate action plan factored in a lot of things, including the public engagement and stakeholder engagement in the process of developing the plan. There were recommendations from the consultants through their modeling. We have also recommendations from the province about what priorities municipalities should be looking at and will align with their work and their funding. We had a lot of recommendations from staff and council, and just considered, some of those really big issues, like how can we most quickly take action to reduce greenhouse gas? What are the big things we can do?
Yeah, sorry to interrupt. Amanda, would you mind moving the bug to the other side of the screen? The online pictures.
Oh, it's
blocking some of the information. Just thanks. That's all. Sorry.
So just, yes, considering what are some of our the biggest things we can do for greenhouse gas reduction quickly, and considering what Colwood is most able to do, considering our role and jurisdiction and whatnot, and what are those biggest things that we can start moving forward with first. We are also considering our partnership roles and opportunities that we know we are coming down the wire over the next year. And so also in your package is that strategic communications and engagement for the year. And again, those are priority actions that were identified in the plan. And it is a broad overall guiding kind of a document to show what we're aiming for. Under some of the different headings that you'll see on the screen, there's foundational work that we need to do in order to be successful with public communications and engagement. There are actual initiatives that we're proposing to undertake for community engagement. There are community events, public participation opportunities for sure on things like the policies and whatnot that we need to develop, and community networks and programs. There's a lot more. Each one of those elements that you're looking at in that package would have a lot of detail that goes into it and planning into that. So that's, you know, at the staff level, definitely the work is progressing on that if all of that goes forward and is endorsed by council. So this is the recommendation before you, that the Environment Committee recommends to council that phase 1 implementation 2023 to 2024 for the Climate Action Plan and the Strategic Communications and Engagement 2024 plan be endorsed. And that the Environment Committee recommends to council that the revised Climate Action Plan dated January 8th be endorsed for master planning purposes. And we've got quite a few staff here ready and willing to answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you very much. It's awesome. I'd like to offer the chance for the committee now to speak to this. We have a variety of options. There's been some discussion prior to the meeting about recommendations to council that we could make at this table. There's lots of interest in making sure ideas come forth and move back to council. So at this point, though, we could ask any questions, or I think fairly broadly, we have the opportunity, we have the staff. I'm going to open with one question. We look at for instance, the emissions targets reduction roadmap to 2030. Do we have some way of tracking these numbers? So we have this plan coming forward. This is already, but I guess it applies to every aspect of the plan. And I don't know if I haven't seen it, or I just don't understand how that information then comes back so that we know in 2030 if we've been successful.
Yeah, excellent question. So we do have corporately our inventory that we do annually for greenhouse gas, your greenhouse gas inventory that will identify where we're at, you know, with and as a total and for specific things. But the CRD conducts community greenhouse gas inventory emissions inventory every 2 years, and so all those things will help us to track where we're at in our roadmap, and that'll be part of our annual reporting that we'll be doing, is whatever concrete information that we have to track where we're at in that roadmap. That's one of the things that is really important for us to do.
Yeah, right. So we do see the reports from, like, for instance, Public Works on the fleet breakdown, which is very helpful. And it's that sort of thing, I guess, we need for everything, right? It's a big job. I do have one more reference in here somewhere to through the days preparing the Colwood Climate Action Team. Is that you guys? I'm sorry, I shouldn't laugh, but I just wondered, who is that?
Yeah, I'm sure you can appreciate, the Climate Action Plan spans pretty much all departments in Colwood.
Yeah.
So the Colwood Climate Action Team, or CCAT as we call them, are all the internal folks working on climate action in their areas. There's lots of leadership as well as staff level coming together to collaborate and work together on how we can best move forward and implement the plan, as well as monitoring and reporting together.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's like a football team. There's so many people and some are on the sidelines and some are on the field. Gotcha. No, that's awesome. I just want to clarify that for myself. Thank you. Anyone else got questions? Just push. Yeah. Okay. Karen?
Yes. Thank you for being here and for all the work you've done so far, and the decision at Monday Night Council to accelerate zero carbon step code was certainly welcome. So thank you for your work on that. And when you talked about, yes, Byron, great report. When you talk about increasing capacity to scale up and partnerships, I can't help but think we could do things a little more quickly if we worked with neighboring municipalities, possibly through the climate initiative. And I'll take the zero carbon step code as a perfect example of that. So last year, Colwood implemented step 3 of the energy step code. And then, and at that time, Victoria and Saanich had already introduced, they wanted to expedite to zero carbon. So it just strikes me that with 13 different municipalities all going through these processes at different times and different speeds with differing results, it's going to take a long time to get the consistency, the regional consistency that builders are looking for. So I know you have mentioned before that you work with the CRD Climate Initiative. I know Colwood pays into it. And I know that they helped Victoria and Saanich kind of create that accelerated zero carbon motion. So do you see, in the form of a question, do you see other opportunities where the 13 municipalities within the CRD can collaborate? For example, I believe the Sue Big Oil campaign is coming in front of the CRD board today. So like, I'm just looking, because we all know the urgency is here. The time to act was 30 years ago. So it's a big catch-up game. How can we make it faster?
Thanks for the question. And there might be some other folks who want to add in here as well. But I'll just first start with, we do work with the CRD Intermunicipal Working Group, the part of that climate action, and at the staff level as well as at the elected official level. But aside from just meeting and working together in that group, there are a lot of initiatives that come up where we can work together on funding initiatives, either as groups of municipalities or across the region. And that is definitely the intention I see at the table from everybody, is to work together and collaborate on these things. Would be much more successful that way. At a recent meeting, some of the municipalities are moving forward with starting some energy benchmarking bylaws and public engagement together and collaborating on that and saying, okay, you know, well, we've got the mandate right now, so we'll go forward and then support the other municipalities who are not quite there yet to move forward after that. So there are a lot of layers of that going on for a lot of the different things that we're working on. We have colleagues and initiatives and funding and a lot of opportunities to work collaboratively, but I really think that is critical, that we work together in the region for sure. And I really hope that increases and is even more successful as we continue to move forward. But let's see if any other comments on that one.
Thanks. And through the chair, I think you summarized things perfectly. I would add that, you know, with our work more generally in planning, we're trying to find ways to collaborate more closely with our neighbors. We've done so as the lead municipality in our we call an RHAP project with multiple municipalities around the region on affordable housing. At the CRD level, there's also the Development and Planning Advisory Committee, which is a group of planning representatives from all of the member municipalities with the CRD that get together quarterly to discuss collaboration. So there's all kinds of issues that beyond climate that we're trying to more effectively collaborate on as well.
I'll quickly comment on that too, actually, because I am the citizen rep, or the council rep rather, to the CRD Climate Action Task Force, which is indeed in a subcommittee really to the CRD Environment Committee, which recommends to the CRD. So it's kind of a few layers through the system. And the focus at those meetings I find interesting and different in some ways, because they talk about some policy approaches to things like a carbon budget and the validity of that. And they discuss a lot of marketing. So that's the point where I see the strength of it. At least one area of strength, since we're talking about communications here. They have, for instance, the what do they call that? The Energy Navigator program, which is on their website, I think. Sandra, you're nodding your head there, which I don't know about anyone else in the room, but I've gone there just to check it out. I've done some things in my house, so I sort of wanted to look at it and try to imagine myself just starting out. And it's incredibly, I think it's well built and designed to help walk people through. And there's people I've heard from that have claimed success. So I think I hear the chance to collaborate means that we can simply refer people to some work that's already been done. We don't have to do it again. That's one. And then I'm also talking regularly to other council reps from other cities and hearing their inputs from what their councils are doing. And this helps move forward what we're doing more quickly, I believe. And there was one other point I wanted to make about that, really. I'm just trying to get my mind around this here for a second. It was the marketing. Oh, and in previous to the council meeting Monday night and the EL4 step code adoption, I personally received, I'm sure they sent it to everybody, but I received 8 outside letters from council. Well, some were letters and a couple were actually phone calls. Other councillors on the island, even one from the Lower Mainland, I can't remember if it was Burnaby or what, encouraging us to go forward with that decision. So there's this, there was nobody against it. There was this sort of wave of communication. So it's not so much collaboration, but it is really, right? We're talking to each other to some degree. So I don't know if that helps understanding what you're talking about. I think it's kind of a function of our system where, you know, we do have different municipalities. So I'm sometimes I come home from those meetings discouraged because of the size of the amount of information that's being discussed and bandied about. Other times I come home going, shaking my head going, wow, that was amazing, because certain things get implemented. The whole discussion around the carbon budget, we sort of went through it. We had a big workshop one day. There was about 50, 60 of us in the room, and that was staff and reps, and the whiteboards were busy, and we put together a huge amount of information in a very short time. And it was just a good thing to be able to talk through stuff, help find words to fit problems or the subjects. So anyway, for what that's worth. But anyway, Karen, why don't you take over? Because I said enough here. Please.
Thanks for your response there, Carolyn and Ian. And further to what you just said, David, the collaboration, the dialogue, the partnering is so critical, as you know. And in the Climate Action Plan, it talks about a circular economy. And so I wonder if there's an opportunity to look at the pathways and find who's doing it best. And when it comes to circular economy, we know that Nanaimo is embracing donut economy model to address environmental concerns and equity concerns. And so is there any plan to reach out to those that you know are doing it well? For instance, it might even be PEI on heat pumps. I hear they have free heat pumps to low-income families. So that's my question. Is there, are you planning to reach out to those who you know are doing it well, and then Colwood can do it even better?
Through the chair, thank you for that question. Yeah, it's a really good point, and definitely a lot of the elements you'll see in that phase 1 implementation is the city needing to develop how we move forward with things and develop initiatives, and absolutely looking at who's doing it and who's doing it well and what lessons learned are one of the first things that I would personally want to look at. And you know, when recently in October, I attended the provincial climate symposium, and those municipalities are all trying to support each other, and the province and the provincial reps. It's a very supportive environment for sharing information and supporting each other in trying to scale this up quickly and move forward. So, and I did write down your point about Nanaimo. and their approaches. Certainly the plans like this and initiatives, we are keeping records on what's being done so we can follow up and learn from those. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, if I may, I just add that, and we have no shame with respect to borrowing or lifting great ideas from other municipalities. An example of that is, so Nelson, BC has got some great work in low carbon building materials, and we actually had a virtual meeting with their chief building inspector that went through that and talked about how we could incorporate that at Colwood. So that's another example of us doing that.
Thank you. Lois.
Hi, I just want to say, to start out with, looking through these materials, I was very pleasantly surprised. They really cover, you know, the depth and the breadth of what we need to be doing. And also, although, you know, looking out to 2050 is like, you know, what emergency, still the pace at which you're making a lot of changes, I'm optimistic that we're going to get where we need to be quicker. I had some observations, you know, obviously these things have probably gone to the point where there are not options to make changes, but just some observations and some questions. When it talked about the budget being 231,500, it struck me that it would be really important for the community to know, you know, this is an extra fee that taxpayers are going to pay for, and sort of the what do I get out of it. Every change that is made, just for example, electrifying the fleet, there will be savings that will be generated on account of that. And similarly for some other things, some of the changes may be coming later down the line, but, you know, changes to insulation or buildings or whatever. There are some things that, you know, and they could be put as a complementary budget line in the council report, so that it's balanced against the taxpayers can see, yes, we're putting this out, but it's going to be offset. So yeah, what the offsets are, I guess that was just one observation. So I was wondering, I saw that, I know all the areas where you were hoping to see changes made in the greenhouse gases, and the amount of impact from solar energy seemed very, very low. And I just wondered if you could give me any explanation for why that didn't rank higher. Is it not going to be a focus, or are you finding it's not very efficient? Or are you thinking the uptake is going to be very poor? Why is that?
Thank you for that question through the chair. And yeah, I may call upon Carolyn to add to this, but in our assessments of the different opportunities, solar was one that we were comparing to our existing access to hydroelectricity, and comparing both the opportunities relative to the payback to the consumer and installing that type of infrastructure, and the cost of electricity, and also the differential between the carbon intensity of the electricity that's derived from solar and hydroelectricity. In both cases, we're not seeing a huge benefit to installing solar in situations where there's access to existing hydroelectricity. We are benefiting from relatively low carbon hydro as a baseline. And I think that's two of the main reasons why it wasn't a higher opportunity in terms of reductions of carbon. Anything to add?
We also saw the presentation from BC Hydro on Monday, where, you know, BC Hydro is looking for opportunities to bring those kind of renewable energy sources into their grid. So I found that quite interesting. And certainly if you know, Colwood sees some great opportunities and some numbers that look like we need to take a second look at prioritizing something. We raised to council bringing this plan forward that it really needs to be nimble and a living document where we're really responsive to new information and opportunities.
Did you have anything more to add, Lois?
Yeah, I do.
Okay, well, okay, please.
Let's see, excuse me. I was happy to see that there's an interest in increasing the tree canopy. And, you know, I didn't see anything on the other side about managing the destruction of the tree canopy as we're doing development, either for residential housing or for, you know, shopping malls or car dealerships or other things. I mean, the tree canopy is evaporating before our eyes. And I don't recall seeing anything in your STEP program, probably it wouldn't have been there, about, you know, developers being required to, you know, reduce the destruction of the full growth trees with full growth trees, or, you know, something that recognizes the that you can't replace, you know, a full growth tree with a spindly little sapling. And I don't know, it just breaks my heart to see that going on, and there's not even a nod given to that within any of these documents. I was wondering if that might be an area where there would be an opportunity for some tweaking within the action plan.
Thank you for that question through the chair. You know, it is a really important aspect of the whole climate response. You know, we have an urban forestry plan that's in development. Our manager of parks, Court Beauvillier, is just sitting behind me and can answer specific questions about that project. That will be looking at specific strategies to maintain forest canopy and compensate for the loss of trees through development that we know will happen. I'd also point the committee to our fish community plan and its sections that speak to the minimization of forest loss through development, primarily through the application of site adaptive design and planning. So the community is going in that direction. It really started that in 2018 with the adoption of that new section to the OCP. And it's being applied to what are developments that were planned, you know, going back decades. So it is a challenge insofar as that there's existing master planned developments with zoning in place, and we have to work with those developers to minimize reduction of tree canopy and optimize opportunities for replanting.
On a similar note, I noticed that the emphasis on, you know, the ability to make changes was really strongly on the residential area. You know, you have that nice little graph that showed, you know, the impact of the corporate greenhouse emissions was like this and the residential was like this. And, you know, in the world at large, that's not the case. It's corporations who do the majority of the, you know, the greenhouse gas emissions. And I guess the reason for that would be that we're a bedroom community. We don't have a lot of big business here. We don't have industry spewing things out. But I think there is still some room to be to make some changes with business. Just for example, in the fact that you know, we are a commuter community, and a lot of people that, you know, who are doing all this traveling, and we're trying to, you know, deal with buses and bicycles and all the rest of that. People are commuting to jobs, and, you know, I think council could have a role to play in attracting some businesses to the community so that people wouldn't have to be driving everywhere they go. And I think that Colwood is trying to do some of that, but that can be a strategy in itself. And dealing with businesses in terms of having, I noticed in the communication plan, a bit of a speakers bureau, talking to businesses about the importance of having people work from home where that's possible. Though that's another strategy. It doesn't have to be all around buses and cars. Getting people off the road can be about other ways of doing things. Not really a question, sorry. I
think we can go come back to you then, Melissa,
Sure.
we can go on. I see Devon's got his hand up.
Sure.
We can always come back to you if you like.
Yeah, the other comment that I had was just related to communication.
Oh, yeah,
plan
go ahead.
itself, so
Yeah.
that's fine. We can go on to some other comments.
Well, why don't we? We'll just jump on to Devon. I see you have your hand up for a bit now, so please go ahead.
Thanks, David. As Lois was saying, I also identified the PV reduction in carbon shockingly low. And I really think that should be a key pillar for Colwood's plan going forward, personally. And just to kind of paint a fuller picture of that, maybe if you had some other kind of metrics or for that that table, that might paint a fuller picture. I imagine it's being the PV is being reduced because of the access to hydropower from in BC. But I think electric generation at the local level is a real forward thinking idea in terms of hardening our grid, in terms of natural disasters. We get windstorms, ice storms, rainstorms, and that would make our grid a little bit more robust, as well as the net metering aspect where people can actually receive financial benefit from selling the power back to the grid, I think is another incentive to bring people along in going to the PV shift. So I would just kind of encourage to take a second glance at if that's a kind of a true accounting of benefits. And then the other comment I have that I'd like to make, and I'll follow up with a question. But there's this concept of efficiency is the kind of cheapest emission to to reduce, but also what efficiency that often doesn't get discussed is that when we become more efficient, it drives the price of the energy or the down, which allows more people to consume because the price is lower or in larger quantities. So efficiency is great. It's a low-hanging fruit, but at the same sense, it can also work against you, because if we're lowering the price of electric or a fuel generation, then people will just naturally consume more. Hence why we have like cap and trades and all that. So to get to my question, that was a little bit of a soapbox here, but to get to my question here, I'm really impressed with the phase 1 plan. I like how you have a roadmap. I like how you're showing that you're measuring carbon footprints. You talk about your projects or your action items and how you're going to resource those. One thing I do think is missing here is the monitoring aspect in terms of what metrics you're actually looking at. And where I would lead you to an important metric is the cost per reduction of that. So you have the reduction of the CO2, but how much does that cost? So essentially you want, from a cost effectiveness standpoint, you want to pay the least amount of money to get the most reduction. So I think bringing the cost element will help the committee, well, not the environmental committee, but Colwood in general, pursue the biggest bang for the buck mentality there. So just would like to see a little bit more on more metrics, maybe 3 to 5. And I would re-examine this PV aspect too there. I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you, Devon. And why don't we go ahead with Karen?
Sorry there, Dave. I'm gonna jump here. My question was, what other metrics are you looking at for this report?
Oh, yeah, right, of course. Sorry. Thank you. You got that,
To
Karen?
the chair, thank
Please.
you for the question. Yeah, in the climate action plan, there are indicators and targets that have initially been developed and adopted, but for some of those initiatives that still need to be developed, those indicators and targets need to be developed. And even, you know, municipalities like Saanich that have been working on their current climate plan since 2020, they still have some indicators and targets being developed as they work through their biodiversity conservation strategy, for example. So those, they're looking for that work to inform what those metrics should be. But we do have some starting metrics, and then I would anticipate that as different departments work through their initiatives in phase one, that they'll be revisiting those and identifying any additional metrics to be reporting on. And then, of course, that would be part of our annual reporting. I hope that answers the question. Not sure if Ian has anything to add. No. Okay.
Thank you very much for that. Karen, and then we'll go back to Lois. Then you said you had one more item. Turned you off. Sorry. There you go.
I wanted to go back to two things that have already come up in the climate action plan, which, by the way, I think is great. And I want to compliment you on the pathways of communications and engagement. I think that's really, really well done. I like the UN framework for communicating. Very good. But two things that really strike me as a disconnect is have already been mentioned. In the plan, it says Colwood by 2050, which too late, hopefully before, will be a leader in renewable energy. And I don't see any pathway to becoming that leader in renewable energy. And the BC Hydro presentation, I was disappointed, I was delighted to hear that they are wanting to strengthen the grid by calling for large scale wind and solar. But there wasn't a really positive response to household solar, which I think is still a viable option. Certainly solar Colwood was taken up by residents, and I think it can help households remain affordable in their energy choices. So and we have a solar company in Colwood, Shift, so that would be promoting local business. And to see solar panels, for instance, on the rooftop of Royal Bay Secondary would send a very strong, clear message that Colwood is a renewable energy community. So I'd just like to, I guess, flag that and maybe get a little more from you on how Colwood plans to be a renewable energy leader. And the other thing I just wanted to touch on is what Lois mentioned is that disconnect between, we have an urban forest strategy. We want to increase our tree canopy, and yet, you know, you look at the roundabout and all the trees that came down, or the development next to Havenwood Park and all the trees that have come down, all those trees were storing carbon. So there's this disconnect if we want to be a Colwood leader, but do as we say, not as we do. And so there has to be, in my mind, a real strong role modeling of the leadership. And I appreciate that some of these decisions, you know, you've inherited from prior governance. But that to me is so important, that we're not saying residents have to start planting trees, but we're going to cut down all these for this development, or we're going to develop this ecologically sensitive slope and put 672 new units up there and maybe disturb the peat bog, which is holding, you know, one of the greatest stores of carbon. So, and I guess this, like, it's such a knot, I know, but everybody has to be on board for climate action, right? It has to be embedded in the strategic plan for the whole municipality. So you did say that you had all staff comment on the plan. And I guess a general question would be, do you feel like you have commitment from all staff and all departments to accelerate climate solutions in Colwood, most particularly land use decisions and renewable energy transformations?
Mr. Berghill.
Thanks, Michelle. I'll attempt to this question. So insofar as I think that we're on a really strong foundation with council's climate action plan, highlighting the need for the CCAT, as we call it, internal group to come together across departments and lead internal change. I think, you know, we're situating ourselves as best as we can to get buy-in across different departments. Ultimately, it'll be up to council when different decisions become before them from the different work units to decide whether the options before them represent what they feel is adequate for climate action. And so I'd really put the onus on the final decision makers relative to their assessment of the corporate buy-in. And we would be acting based on council's direction flowing from that.
Thank you very much. Lois, would you like to push a button and I can?
Okay, thanks.
Okay, go ahead.
I just want to piggyback on what Karen said, that the you know, these changes in the way council looks at things and the way staff is putting it forward, so that everything that council looks at, every proposal is balanced with what are the climate considerations. And I think that is so important. So as compared to doing business as usual, at least that's the way I read the document. And I hope, you know, that I've read it properly. And that's just such an earth-shaking change in the way of doing business that it can't help but succeed. The observation that I had on the communication plan, I think, you know, it really supports everything that's been laid out in the other documents. There were only two things. One is that it's in there, but I want to make sure that I at least voice my opinion that the communication can't focus more heavily on the passive communication. So, you know, a website is great and everybody uses it a lot, but I think it's, you know, for people to come searching for information is really asking a lot. And I did see in the communication plan, you know, a reference to communicating with residents monthly and with workplaces. And yeah, that is so important to get inside people's homes and workplaces rather than waiting for them to come to the city's website. And the other thing that I observed was just I felt the absence of a reference to who the audiences were that these communications were intended for. And this goes back to my comment earlier about business being a really key component. And I was pleased to see the Speakers Bureau, and I would hope that they would go to businesses as well. And, you know, there's all kinds of challenges that you can have from one business to the other, who can do the, you know, have the smallest teacup of waste that goes out per day or something like that. There are all kinds of ways to get, you know, employees and businesses excited about doing the best, but also the Chamber of Commerce and industry conferences and things like that that go on to have a presence. at those kinds of things. And a really strong media communication plan, because, you know, they're the ones who are going to carry the message. I want to turn on the radio and hear about what's going on. And also nonprofit groups. There's a lot of nonprofit groups out there who are engaged in this type of activity, who can, you know, carry this forward for you, who can be your foot soldiers. So, and you know, the developers have to be a huge communication target as well. Anyway, my suggestion would be, you know, whether or not you include that as a section in your communication plan, but if it's not included as a section, to, you know, at least really flesh that out.
Thank you very much for that, through the chair, Lois. I thank you for raising that, because I wanted to stress to the group that this is quite a high level communications plan that you've been presented with. Many of the strategies in this plan will need their own communications engagement plan, which builds it out much more deeply, that includes those audiences, what specific messages will go to each of those audiences, what tactics we'll use to get those messages to those audiences. You mentioned print and radio. You know, also we have a number of bus shelters we can use, so outdoor advertising to really engage people, as well as meeting people where they are. You know, maybe we're going to be getting on a bus at some time and energizing people in some ways, or certainly bringing different presenters and different activities into the events that the community already hosts, and hosting additional events. So I just want to assure you that likely the majority of the actions you see in this overview of strategic communications and engagement will have a deeper engagement plan that, you know, guides our entire strategy around each of those. So
That's great.
there's more to come for sure, but really we wanted to give you a high level look, make sure we're going in the right direction before we do that work, to really focus our energy in those directions, make sure we're on the right path. So great. Thank you for that.
Thank you very much, Sandra. Lois, then you're good.
That's it
That's
for me.
great. Devon, you put your hand up, please.
I would just like to underscore Karen's comment about the impact of local generation. There's quite a bit of energy loss when you transmit energy through electrical lines or transmission lines. So estimated about 5 to 6% of energy loss from just the transportation of the energy itself. So what I think here is that that's an easy win if you have local generation of electricity through solar panel or commercial residential. So just a comment there that we like Site C Dam is all the way, I want to say,
I have a feeling he hit the wrong button. Did he leave, Amanda? Is he gone? Okay, well, we'll carry on here. I had a couple comments I wanted to make. One is on page 4 of this. Scroll up in my memory like a phase 1 implementation. Under municipal leadership, the objective, there's a date there, 2045. Is that correct? Is it not? Sorry, yeah, just because it's the only place that date appears.
It's this is in the climate action plan. So the it's the objective under municipal leadership, in which the intention is to have, you know, the city achieve the net zero goals and whatnot sooner than the broader community. So
yeah, I've always seen reference.
This is just from the plan.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. I've always seen the reference to the target being 2050 or sooner. So is 2045 the or sooner part of that? Is that kind of how I read that?
No, 2045 is in the plan under
Okay.
municipal leadership. It's the objective for municipal leadership for the what we're aiming for. It's in the climate action plan.
Okay, yeah, okay. I see. I think I understand now. I don't know why that caused me such consternation. Another aspect of this meeting I would like to comment on now is just that the notion of this plan and the recommendations that we're considering today, it'd be nice if we could I think I have a feeling myself personally, it's kind of like a team of horses, right? They're raring to go and get the work done. We want to get our hands into actual actionable items, get that started, get it moving forward, and our recommendations so they can help move it forward. I think there seems to me opportunity within the structure to make adjustments as we go and improvements as we go, no doubt, right? Even if it's on an annual basis with budget review or budget planning, etc. So I just wanted to make that comment because I know from talking to the staff prior to this meeting, the days prior, there was reference to this idea that everybody's keen now because writing the plans and so on is great work. And I really am pleased to see this and work with this today when work the committee's done and so on as well. So I let Devon finish up with what he was saying. Devon, do you want to? Welcome
Sorry
back.
about that. Sorry about the drop connection there. Yeah, I was about to say that, you know, we refer to like the Site C area as north of the province, but it's not. But it's middle. But there's still a lot of transmission distance there that we lose from energy loss from relying on like you know I forget what the distributed source of energy, I guess, would be it. But that's just to support Karen in her comment about local energy and the importance of it. But my other question for the group is, I imagine you're gonna, through this process, build spreadsheets or data. Are you planning on open sourcing that data for the community to analyze so that we can have a transparent approach to our solutions?
Short answer is yes. Yeah. Our corporate emissions profile is published via our website every year, and we'll be bringing all the data that we collect relative to community performance forward for public review. I think it's important to have that. Taxpayers pay for that work, and they should have access to the information.
Thank you. I see, Pam, your video is on. Did you want to, it hadn't been, by the way, for your information, but thank you for coming and being here. Did you have anything you'd like to add today?
I mean, I was waiting and listening and pretty much everything that I had written down was covered by everybody else. So I have a very good, feeling. I'm very grateful that this climate action plan is put forth. I'm very grateful for Monday night. I like that this is, and I have a good understanding that this is a work in progress, and that, things are going to be building upon other things, and that, my one thing that I was going to bring up that I was already brought up was especially the community engagement part. And, I'm looking forward to seeing the plans for engaging with all of the nonprofit organizations here, the foot soldiers, as it were. Looking forward to, getting everybody involved to help out.
Right. Thank you very much for that. And Karen Woodland, please.
Thanks. So there's just a few things I wanted to mention, and I'm apologize that they're not in a really logical order because some of the things we've touched upon and some we haven't. But I wanted to note that in the introduction to the plan, it's in the Indigenous land acknowledgement, it says we walk softly on these lands. And I really want to believe that's true, and I really want us to do it. And it's been hard over the last while to, really, it looks like we're trampling, blasting, and clear cutting these lands. And so I hope that, walking softly becomes more than just something we say, but something we can actually do. along those lines, I didn't see a mention of wildlife in the plan. There's a lot of mention of protecting biodiversity and ecosystems, natural assets and carbon sinks. I'd like to know how we can engage the public more in doing that. And one example is Metchosin has for the past decade had a monthly talk and walk series. And now they've got, lots of really engaged and active volunteers in that community with Andy McKinnon and Kim Luther. They're renowned mycologists, biologists, but maybe there is someone in Colwood who wants to start something like that. So the idea is, a talk the Friday night and then a walk the next morning, and maybe we can do a biodiversity plan for Colwood. Metchosin has a really fabulous myco blitz annually. So looking at, protecting not just ecosystems, but flora, fauna, because this is like, we live in one of the rarest ecosystems in all of Canada, and it's disappearing far too quickly. So let's at least try and map what we have before it's all gone. On page 21, there's a little section that says government sets the stage, but it is residents and businesses who make the daily decisions to reduce their emissions and carbon footprint. I find it slightly misleading because I think government does more than set the stage. Government regulates, government introduces policy. I think it's important that all of us do all we can to lighten our own carbon footprints, but I really don't want to see individuals being held accountable for the lack of government policy. So I don't know, just wanted to note that. And now I'm flipping back to the beginning of the document where you talk about vibrancy. And I just a suggestion, and I don't want to, get into the weeds too much because we want to accelerate the action and not spend all the time on the plan. But it strikes me that resilience might be a better word than vibrancy. I was just trying to think of what vibrancy is, and resilience is more inherent in climate action. And the same with prosperity. I didn't see prosperity mentioned again in the plan, but well-being was mentioned frequently, and that just strikes me as a better value to highlight. I think that is just a, really, on page 23, there's a little thing about environment, social and economy. And it took me back to my environmental study days in the 80s when the three-legged stool was what Canada used. Is if the environment is not thriving, neither will the economy. So you need all three legs of the stool. So I just recommend bring back that graphic. It's simple, it's very straightforward, and it's very clear. Yeah, I think that's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Karen. I'm prepared to call for the motion to accept the recommendation that we have before us here. I'm satisfied with it, but I'd like someone from the committee perhaps to do it or suggest otherwise. The recommendation before us is that the Environment Committee recommend to Council that Phase 1 implementation for the Climate Action Plan and Strategic Communications Engagement 2024 plan be endorsed, and that the Environment Committee recommends to Council the revised action plan dated January 8, 2024 be endorsed for master planning purposes. I guess I just read it, didn't I? Anyone prepared to make a motion for that recommendation? Karen? And anyone more discussion around that notion? Then call the question. All those in favor? Oh, sorry. And I can't see, oh, I guess Pam's lost from the screen, but the four of us voting are all voting in favor. So Pamela's now, oh, she's back. Pam, we just took a vote on the recommendations as they appeared in the agenda. So are you interested in, are you able to vote? Or was that the end of it? Yeah, you can put up your hand if you are in favor.
The signal.
Yes, okay, there we are. Geez, I've never had that experience before. That's great, Pamela. We had you long enough to get your vote in. That's awesome. Thank you for that. I know that this item is not on the agenda, but I did have a request earlier in the week about the Ideas Fair, and I spoke with Sandra. She agreed to speak a little bit to it today, I believe. I hope I'm not putting you on the spot about anything. It can be brief, just anything at all that you might have for us. Thank you.
So it is in the plan to host an Ideas Fair specific to environment. We hope to do that early in the first quarter of the new year, I think is the plan. If we're able to pull it together, we would set it up similarly to previous Ideas Fairs we've done, where we would have a number of stations around a large space. In the past, we've used Royal Bay Secondary's aviary, I think they call it, the big space. But we would find a space where we could set it up with interactive activities for people to share their thoughts, to have conversations, to feel comfortable and welcome, with a lot of promotion to get as many people involved as possible, including the nonprofits you've mentioned, including volunteer groups that we work with and hope to foster more of, businesses. We would focus on all those key audiences that we're trying to engage, which really hopefully will be everyone, include everyone in Colwood. And with your help, shape it in a way that gives us really meaningful feedback that we can bring back to council to help further refine the plans that we have, and focus on the ways that we're hearing from the community they would like to focus it, engage them in the ways they would like to be engaged. So ask all those questions that help us be as effective as possible as we can as we move through the next several years of climate action. I hope that helps. Feel free to ask questions.
Yeah, that's wonderful. You can take a question or two, I assume. It's okay. Thank you. Carolyn, you'd like to ask?
Thanks,
Question.
David. Thanks, Sandra. And one of the other ideas that was proposed in conjunction with the Big Ideas Fair was a panel where residents could ask their questions about climate change. And I think it's important. I was really happy to see that, you're listening to the science, it's evidence-based, but I think I know there is very low climate literacy out there, and there is more and more misinformation, disinformation, and it's getting really, really hard to separate opinion from science. So I think there's a real engaging the community is fabulous. Absolutely need to do it. But to me, there's a critical need to begin with a baseline of here's where we're at. And it doesn't have to be, academic gobsmacking bananas as the last report was. But there are people like Pearson College had a teacher who went to Dubai to present his curriculum, his climate curriculum. So there are a lot of engaged people who know a lot about climate. They don't have to all be academics. Some of the people from CAPE speak really well on the health impacts of climate. So I think it would be I hope that is also in the planning stages.
Thank you for that. Yes, the challenge that we find with that idea is that the people who would come to listen to a panel often are the people who are already there. And so it's that piece we need to find that will hook those residents who have doubts, who are on the edge, who, you know, really have questions. And so that's where the, you know, the creativity needs to come in to find a way to embed it where those folks will be and engage them in a way so that it's not just people, you know, the converted speaking to the converted. So there's where we need to find, you know, a real way to engage people. Somebody mentioned in this conversation, the what's in it for me piece. And so to bring that to the conversation, like, here's how you can benefit from this, whether it's financially or, you know, home comfort or, you know, we need to find the hook that gets those folks in. But I agree with you, in addition to engagement, there needs to be education. People need to know that, as you say, at least the basics of where we are and where we're trying to get to and why that is important. So I hope that helps, and we're working on that, spinning the wheels, trying to get those ideas going.
Yeah, thank you. Pam.
I just wanted to add in there as well, it would be really important to address the disinformation campaigns that are going on. They are quite active. There's a lot of conspiracy theorists infiltrating a lot of places, a lot of forums for education on this. And so that might be something, you know, I just want to kind of throw that out there, something to address as well.
Yeah, for sure. I think we come up against that. Sandra's a seasoned conspiracy theorist respondent. I don't know if you are, but I mean, your communications, you do that on the website or on the, with our city. I see that you have to post clarifications. I mean, it's not even set up as it's like news releases to let people know what's up. And the fact that it's the official presentation on our website makes it definitive. And I think that helps a lot. Yeah. Devon, I see your hand is up, please.
Yeah, thanks, David. I'm just wondering if there's a mechanism that exists for Colwood to give rebates on property taxes for sanctioned climate initiatives. Like if you bought a solar panel, if you submitted the receipt, and let's say you get